Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Gloria Pope. I'm based in Mount Vernon, New York. I'm currently 41 and almost 42 years old. My story is an amazing story to tell. I am back in a community where I was born, and I came home to do all the work that I'm doing today. So just a little bit about me and to kind of give you a build up to who Dr. Glow is and where this brand has evolved, especially in the last 4 years. So I was born here in Mount Vernon. I'm the oldest of 15 children, which is unheard of in this day and age to have that many siblings. But I grew up with my mom, mainly my dad. They had a divorce at 12 years old. So we know we have differences and things that happen within our communities where families separate. So I was an interesting teenager, always super smart, was a student athlete here in Mount Vernon, and I did well and I went off to school. So by the time I got to school, I realized that I always wanted to be an educator. And the reason why I think I really want to be an educator is because my sister and I, who we are only a year apart, we spent a lot of time educating our siblings and just taking charge. And then as the oldest, you realize for a fact that you're just meant to be a leader. So I went to school and I started working in the nonprofit world. By the time I was 19 years old, I was actually running my first GED/mentorship program in Philadelphia for Temple University. I enjoyed that so much that I stayed in that, and I started working for some other nonprofits within that space. We're doing a lot of mentoring and coaching to the youth within the community. So I stayed within that realm for a while. And then once I was pregnant with my son back in like 2005, I opted to move to Trenton, New Jersey. And when I moved to Trenton, I got a new job. I couldn't find what I was doing previously within the education realm of the GED instruction and things of that nature in adult ed. So then I moved over to early childhood, and that's when I found my passion. I started off as a teacher's assistant in an infant toddler classroom, and it was amazing. It was amazing. I worked with this woman who we're still actually really friends now through social media. We speak all the time. And I realized that she's the first person who taught me the love of actually working with young children. Now, why I realized I love young children so much was because of the fact that you were able to mold your community and mold that child to be something special. Young people in between the ages of 0 and 5, that's where they get the meat of who they are as an individual. If you build out that person or that child, that young person, by the time they're 5 years old, you're setting them up for ultimate success throughout their life. And that's where I realized I was doing at that. So I started working in that space and got promoted automatically over to a supervisor and really started taking the leadership role. As much as I love working with people, I realized I don't like working for people. And that was something I realized very young for myself. So fast forward a couple of years, son started getting a little bit older. My daughters were getting a little bit older. And I realized that that wasn't a community I wanted to raise my children in. So I came back home. Back in 2007, I came back to Mount Vernon, New York, where I came. It was funny. I came back home and stacked up at my dad's house until we were able to afford to get our own place. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. We came back here, and then I went to the Dole Center. Actually, I called my sister, who was actually working in education, and I said to her, I was working in early childhood in Trenton. I really, really liked it. Where do you think I should go apply for a job? So she sent me to 2 places, and the one I liked the best is the one where I stayed for 14 years. I worked there, started there as a teacher, and then moved on to become an ed coordinator, and then I became the director of that program. Now that program unfortunately lost some funding and lost a grant, so some transition. So that program unfortunately closed after 42 years of existence. And I had to move on to another program. Then I was able to transition to another program called Collin Island Child Development Center here in Mount Vernon, where I now work with other children, and I'm the executive director of that program. Through early childhood, I've realized that I have saved lives in so many different ways. And I'm proud of the work that I have created in my community, which has led to so many other things that I have done. Now, my business, Black Girl Everything, is where I support Black women-owned businesses, and I love what I do. But the base of that has everything to do with the fact that I, myself, am a Black girl who's capable of doing everything. So besides early childhood, I also worked as a tutor when I actually did youth services as well for a while and some group homes. And I realized just how much kids were just not getting what they needed. So I went and I actually started tutoring and mentoring and became a life coach and started working with families directly on how to be more supportive to their children and as well as kids being more supportive to themselves and teaching them how to cope within schools and giving them the motivation to actually do better and access that level of intelligence that they just were not accessing currently. So I did that for a few years. And that was my first business was a Unified Consulting Life. At the same time, I was still working. I was finishing up my master's degree in education, and I had to do a project. And my thesis, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do my thesis? So I called a friend of mine who I knew had this nonprofit. And I was like, okay, you know what? This would be a great place for me to go because the focus was on program structure and management. So I went over there, and the location is called Destination Tomorrow. I went in, I was just like, Sean, who's now still the CEO of this amazing nonprofit. And I said, Sean, I want to actually evaluate your program. So when I went in, he said, sure, come on in. I went into that space. Currently, the office for DT was just as big as my bathroom in my house. It was a small office. It was just getting started, grassroots, bootstrapping. This man was out here just really getting it in. And I evaluated the program, realized he had no education program. I wrote my paper, did well, and I called him one day and I was like, thank you for that opportunity. But you know what? I got an opportunity for you. I realize your program doesn't have this program. I'm going to come and I'm going to volunteer and I'm going to create it for you. Here I am now, 5 years later. I am the Director of Educational Enrichment for Destination Tomorrow, which is also the Bronx LGBTQI Center, where I lead coursework in life skills as well as job readiness, financial literacy. We're starting family services within the location. So the perk about working for DT is that I work directly with the queer community, especially the trans community with here in New York, where services for many years weren't really available for them. And I found through my research, as I've been working within that community, especially in education, that this community is so transient throughout the school districts that many of them couldn't survive within the space of the school that they're in, that they're dropped out. And they tend to drop out. 98% of my clients have dropped out in between the 11th and 12th grade. And you ask why? It's because they didn't feel they were safe enough in a space to get through. So now they come to this space where we help them get their high school diplomas, we help get them jobs, and we help them restructure themselves to be within a world that's going to help them overall and come back and give back to the youth and as well as people around them. We do amazing internship programs with our partner organizations. And now I'm just happy to be part of a team who's actually opened up their secondary office in Atlanta, Georgia. I love Atlanta, one of my secondary cities. So I'm excited to actually go down and visit and be down there and build the same type of programming in another environment where the services just aren't there for our youth and our adults within the queer community. So past that, as you see now that I love education so much, that I actually am an educator from birth all the way to adults. Some of my youngest client I have is 8 weeks old, comes into my program, and some of my oldest clients at DT can be well into their 60s. So with all of that, I just realized that education is definitely what I want to be and what I want to do. When I was working for my previous program, one day I was coming home from a director's meeting. It was very pre-COVID. It was just when COVID was in China and we didn't know too much was going on. And I was just like, okay, you know what? I really don't think I necessarily want to do this job forever. Because again, I said to you earlier, I've always known that I don't want to work for people. I always wanted to work for myself because I never wanted anyone to damper on what I was able to create for the world. And I know that I was able to create for the world. So I decided to start something new. And that's where Black Girl Everything LLC was born. Black Girl Everything was established because I have an amazing team of friends who are so talented in so many different ways. So I said that one meeting, I was like, I'm going to host this event where I'm going to have this giant expo and I'm going to have these vendors and people are going to have performers. I'm going to have all these great things. And I got the whole event up. I had 200 tickets sold in like 4 weeks. It was going to be the best thing that ever hit Mount Vernon, New York. And then COVID said no. So I had to redirect what I was going to do. And that's when I started mini expos and became a vlogger and started actually exposing these people. Because my goal was I was going to sit here and get people's businesses out here. I was meeting amazing women who had amazing skills, who wanted to do amazing things. So I wanted to make sure that they were being seen, and that's what I did. I started doing videos, and now just this week I've recorded 122 since July of 2020. So I'm very proud of the accomplishments that I have made with Black Girl Everything. Black Girl Everything. Otherwise, we do great events. I do events quarterly. I do pop-ups where there are large scale experiences within my community where small businesses come out and sell products. And then I do so much with BGE. And there's also the collective where I work directly with other businesses and we collaborate together to ensure that we are all making it out here, because collaboration is definitely key. So through that experience and everything else like that, I realized that I was capable, and I had purpose, and that I am a powerful person within this space, within this world. So I want to take in and tap into everything that I have. So when I done my doctorate, my dissertation was on parent engagement in the urban community for children with a diagnosed disability. And I did that because my son has ADHD, and it was an interesting road traveling with him and throughout his process, who's now 17 years old. And actually today we had an IEP meeting and say he doesn't need his IEP. I said, no, he's going to hold it because it's a powerful tool. So we changed some things because he's advanced, found out his IQ is in a superior level. Not shocked, but was a little shocked about that. But I love being a mother. And so what I decided to do was to start another organization, which is a Daisy Dream Project. The Daisy Dream Project is my nonprofit where I'm going to be focusing on really rehabilitating the structure and the creativity of Black and Brown communities. It's going to have sensory gyms and spaces where children can't get access to them. It's going to have parent leadership courses, is going to be an engaging space which parents can come with their children, especially with children with differing abilities. I'm not going to use diagnosed disabilities. I'm going to say differing abilities, just because children have some limitations. They're matched even more with their strengths, and we want to be strength-based within this organization. We're just getting started, so I'm excited to, as it expands. One of the key things that we're going to be doing is we're focusing on preconception all the way through early adolescence, including building out these infant toddler. In New York, we have special education classrooms. And what we find for Black and Brown communities that our kids don't have access to these classrooms within their actual community. So they're bused minutes, 45 minutes to an hour. They're taking a 2-year-old on a bus to programming. So what the Daisy Dream Project is going to do is actually establish these classrooms within daycare centers, within communities that exist for them, because I'm all about giving access to everything and everyone. So one of the last things I want to talk about, one of my greatest accomplishments I have had right now, I'm a published author, and I have written Hero, Memoirs of Infertility. So like I said, with the Daisy Dream Project is talking about from preconception all the way to early adolescence. So what Hero talks about is actually infertility and how women of color have struggled through infertility. My wife and I, we went through IVF to create our daughter, Lael, who is my rainbow baby from the heavens. She is amazing, and we're so happy to have her. But through that process, we had to experience, loss. We lost a son at 18 weeks, 5 days, and we realized that Black women are just not getting the care that they need. We see the stories over and over about how women of color are dying from childbirth. They're dying in hospitals on a consistent basis. So this book, what it does is it tells a story in 3 parts of my story, as well as a story of 9 other people from different perspectives. It gives a perspective of married couples. It shows marriages that end in divorce. It also shows people just really trying to live through in a transgender experience, a single experience. The stories within Heroes, Memoirs of Infertility are going to change lives, because 48% of Black women experience infertility, and I needed everybody to know that. So basically, that's Dr. Glow. That's really my story. And I think it's honestly just the beginning of who I am and where I'm going and who I'm going to be. So I'm living in my passion every single day. And I'm just excited to be out here to express what I got going on and get support from community, because community matters. And the more that we work together, the better we all shall be.
Wow. Your story is fascinating. When I was reading your bio and the form that you filled out, I felt that I would have so many layers I had to You're like an onion with layers and layers and layers to your life. So let me take you all the way back to the beginning because you're a young woman who's been on quite a journey. How did you come to understanding what your own sexual orientation was? And why are you so passionate about supporting this community? Why is it important for people to understand?
Well, for me, what I realized that I always knew that I was different. I've always was attracted to girls when I was younger, and I was part of the era where being open about that was starting to change. So I was in high school in the 90s. It wasn't as taboo, but still was very taboo. By the time I got to college and I was in that safe space to be whoever I want to be, because one of the benefits of college is you get to reinvent yourself, especially if you go away to school. I went away 2 hours away to Philadelphia. Nobody really knew me there. So I was able to actually, oh, I can do this. I can sit here and date who I want, be with who I want. And then I'm a leader. So ultimately, nobody was going to tell me what I couldn't be or who I couldn't be. So for me, working with the queer community is so important because I love to empower them that they can be this strong. And then to see also that you can be successful. You know, we don't have to, a lot of, unfortunately, people are thrown from their homes. They don't have anything, they're running away. You know, they come to places like New York where they're living with other people of the queer community who come on as their mother and their father and support and take care of them, especially we talk of things of the ballroom scene. So I wanted to make sure I was in a space where I can show that yes, I am queer, yes, I am me, but yes, I am also very successful. And that's why I stand within that space the way that I do, because I wanted people to see that you can be somebody. And I love empowering them to get them to the next level. So standing in my truth was one of the best things that I ever did for me, because I think it set me up to make all these decisions who have made me exactly who I am today.
That is awesome. So, Black Girl Everything
Mm-hmm.
is a personification of your work wrapped in one. Am I correct?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Delve into more detail what inspired you to do this. And if somebody's listening to us right now who's needing your kind of help, three nuggets of wisdom. What three nuggets of wisdom would you give them?
Mm-hmm. Well, Black Girl Everything, you know, I really, so it starts off with the fact that I was divorced before my first marriage, got married very young, and went through a real traumatic experience. And after 12 years, I decided enough was enough, and I walked away from that situation. And then I was blessed in this world to cross paths with somebody who I knew from my childhood, who is now my wife, and we've been married now 5 years, been dating, been together for now 9. With her, I was also blessed with an amazing group of friends. I've never been in it, I've always had friends, but this group of women were so close, so intact. And I felt that I came within the space and I became part of the team. And this team had so many talents. We had authors, there's social workers, there's event planners, and everybody, there's nurses, everybody just has this level of talent. So one of my friends, Vanessa Moore, was this great author, and she just wanted to fly under the radar. Fly under the radar. And I was like, no, you're not going to fly under the radar. So that's what's really started Black Girl Everything. I honestly just wanted to build a space where I could promote Black women who were doing amazing things out here in the world. And that's how it really started. And I was on the phone with my cousin who also does great stuff. And I was just like, yo, I'm going to do this event. She said, I'm coming from Atlanta. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. And then I started sharing with other people, all other friends around me. And everybody's like, this is so dope. This is so amazing. And it just came at the right time because we noticed during the pandemic that we were all so quiet and also still that we was able to really see what was going on around us, and creativity kicked in because, Black women are the center of the universe. So we create all the time. But with that free time, we were able to really see what our real purpose was in the world. So businesses were popping up everywhere. all the time. So I just wanted to talk about them. And that's where Black Girl Everything came from. In regards to nuggets for people, all I'm going to sit here and say, sometimes sit quiet. Sit quiet because the universe is ready to give you everything you want. All you have to do is ask for it. And when the universe tells you after you ask, all you have to do is move on it. And then after you move on it, all you have to do is let yourself shine, because the universe is promised to everybody for us to be our best selves. And your best selves is just living within your purpose and living for everyone all at the same time and sharing everything that you know, because you're going to be great because you were meant to be great.
Wow. You are literally singing my song today. You have no idea how sweet it sounds to hear you express in this way. You know, as women of color, we sometimes are held back by our own perception of our abilities and what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that you have emphasized is community and the importance of community. And I'm a community builder. I believe that alone you can only go so far, but with a collective of other women, you can go even further.
Mm-hmm.
So, how have you galvanized your community? How do you keep them connected and together?
The collective. So one of the first things that Black Girl Everything created was the collective. And the collective is, and people say, well, how do I become part of like the basic collective? Is honestly, once you have a conversation with me, you are automatically part of the collective. And you become an asset to me and everyone else around me, or anyone else who I've engaged with at some point in time, because community is important. And people who are growing businesses, and the key thing that we all have to know, that your net worth is determined by your network. So if you don't have the network, you're not going to get the net worth. So you have to work and collaborate with others to move forward. That's why collaboration is key. This is why I do these interviews. This is why I interview with other people, because I want to keep building on my network and building on opportunity, so I can bring these opportunities back to every single individual that I work with and give them the opportunities to grow within their organizations. So, being part of a community is key. You have to work together. And with Black Girl Everything, keeping everybody connected is one of the main reasons why I host a lot of my events. So I do these pop-ups quarterly, right? But then I also do things where I do seminars on a monthly basis where people come and they just join in. If I don't see a particular vendor or business that I've worked with in the past pop up on social media, I pick them up. I pick up my phone on a random Tuesday and just call them and say, how are you? Are you okay? I haven't seen you on social media. I haven't seen you post about your business. I see that your website things haven't changed in a while. And I actually go back and just literally just check in. And sometimes I find people say that I'm lost, I'm stuck. And then we have a conversation to try to reignite their passion and their process. Or I link them with other people or other resources that they need to ignite and reignite their passion. So we have to hold each other accountable. We have to be there for each other, because calling somebody and saying, hey, you know what? I ran out of your body butter. What's going on? Are you still making it? Why not? Let's go. Let's get started. Well, how can I help? How can I be here to support you? And we can all move forward, because if we all move that way, everybody's going to flourish. Everyone will flourish. There's millions and billions of people in the world. There's no need to compete. Competition is never necessary, but collaboration is always necessary.
Oh gosh. This is just wonderful to hear. You know, a lot of times women are so busy competing against each
Mhm.
other and not realizing that that collaboration piece is our superpower and we have the ability to do it
Mhm.
intuitively and naturally. We've just been taught by society that there is a certain way of being, but the collective is everything.
Mhm.
So, if I could take you to that time when you were struggling with infertility,
Mhm.
you're blessed that you managed to get your beautiful baby. But if there was a woman who is going through this right now, based on your experience and how the outcome of your life turned out, what three nuggets of wisdom would you give somebody else? What would you have wanted somebody to have said to you when you were struggling?
Whew. So tapping into those emotions. So tapping into those emotions within that time was very interesting. So I didn't carry. So my son, who was 17, I naturally had him, did not have any concerns. My wife, unfortunately, had a fibroid, which was causing her infertility issues, which forced us to go the route of IVF. IVF, when I was growing up, everybody thought that IVF was for the rich people, right? It's for rich people. Poor people don't do it. We can't afford it and everything else like that, because the reality is hardly you can't. New York State has established some great laws, has made it more affordable for people to have access to that type of care, but it is out of reach for a lot of people within a lot of communities. So when it comes down to infertility, our process was challenging. It was challenging. And the key thing when you're dealing with infertility of any type of infertility is that it is not a sprint. It is a marathon. Going to the doctors and paying, 10, 15, 20, $30,000 for a process, and it's not a miracle. There's no miracles behind this. You got to work every single day. You got to keep up with the doctors. You got to watch what you're putting into your body. And then you also have to watch your mind, because the mind is a very powerful thing. So if you're down and out, if you're not in a safe space within your relationship, if you're not necessarily comfortable with what's going on in your life, or you're overly stressed, it's also not going to work. So for people who are experiencing infertility, I'm going to tell you, you are not alone under any circumstance. I speak a lot about women of color because I want to speak from our experience. And the fact is that, again, that 48% of women of color actually struggle to actually get pregnant. It's hard. It's so hard. And we have things like endometriosis, there's fibroids, there's PCOS, every single thing under the book we all get hit with. Okay. So what I say for women who are going through this process is that you are not by yourself. There's somebody who's probably next to you within your space that's going through the same thing. 1 in 4 women experience a miscarriage in their life, at least one. 1 in 4 women. And some women have had a miscarriage, don't even realize, because it happened so early before you even can realize that you had the miscarriage. So with those type of numbers, 48% of women of color and 1 in 4 having a miscarriage. So when you go through those experiences, it's not just you, it's happening all around you every single day. I know now when I go to events after I release my book, I get people who every single thing I go to, every time I'm outside, people see me, they pull me to the side. They're like, Dr. Glow, thank you so much for writing that book, because I'm going through this. This is my process. I'm going to read your book. This is what I'm experiencing. And the big thing about the book is that my book gives the perspective from the partner. So it also saves relationships, because people are able to understand that, yes, your body is failing you at this point, but you have somebody next to you who's also in it with you, who's experiencing that. Because you sit there and people say people don't survive. 50% of marriages don't make it through infertility. Literally. Is one of the hardest things. People think that money and jobs and all those things really cause a lot of issues, but not being able to create life is even worse. So again, you're not by yourself. Journal, talk about what you're feeling, be honest with yourself, be honest with those around you, be patient with those who don't understand, because you're going to have those people like, well, you not have a baby yet, and those type of questions. And be honest with you know what, I'm going through these certain experiences. And also, don't allow people to dump their sad emotion on you within your space. One of the key things that I did, especially after we lost our son, was that I took time and space for us. And I was very clear with everyone else around us. I know that you guys are sad that we lost Leyland. I know that you're sad that we're having this experience, We know it. I don't need you to dump it on us every day. I don't need you to call us crying. I don't need you to show up with tears in your eyes. That's not what we need. What we need is safe spaces. We need spaces so we can process our emotions and our feelings because we are actually the ones experiencing it. So sometimes we took time away from people. We took time away from people and we didn't allow everybody to push their emotions on us. And because it's not fair.
Wow. I never looked at it that way. And people mean well, but you have to
Hmm.
set the boundaries.
Yeah.
You have to set that boundary. So now let me take you into the future.
Okay.
If time was an illusion, your past, your
Mm.
present, your future could exist in the same timeline, and I could take you to the 100-year-old you. You're now sitting with your grandchildren and your great grandchildren. And if you could have a conversation with that wise woman who has led you to that point,
Hmm.
what would you say to your future self based on how you've lived your life?
Wow. It's so funny because when I spend time in my yard, and I spend time out there, and I always talk about when I have grandchildren or children, and that my children will always be able to come here to this space and to exist within this world. Um, Words that I would want to share at 100 years old is that live every day as every day is your most important day. Exist within moments and don't just let them just fade away because sometimes we just don't take time to exist within the moment. We're so worried about what's going to happen next, but enjoy life because life is a beautiful place. Even in the hard times, there's always that light on the other side. So I think that, definitely 100-year-old me would be out there with my 25 grandchildren and my 50 great grandchildren just running around. Everybody there, the biggest family reunion ever. Because I'm definitely going to have a party when I turn 100. It's going to be very fabulous. And I will tell them all just live within the moment because every moment matters.
Absolutely beautiful way to end our interview. Is there anything else I should have asked you and didn't?
No, I think you asked great questions. I think I got, my whole life and passion out there.
Okay,
um,
so I always throw that in case I miss something. No, this is beautiful. I'm going to stop the broadcast. Thank
Hi, my name is Elda Lopez, Elda Maria Lopez. I'm based in Los Angeles, California. I'm 65 years old, and I am the self published author of The Infidelity Factor Points to Ponder Before You Cheat. Here is my book right here. Oops, it's available on all platforms, Amazon in particular, but and on many various platforms. I chose to write this book regarding infidelity prevention and building healthy relationships because um, where I live in Los Angeles, California, there was a governor who was found out to have had an affair, and there was a child born out of wedlock from that affair. And I thought, somebody in such a high office, and he was married to a very beautiful, well accomplished woman who had a impeccable breeding. And I realized infidelity, it covers all socioeconomic cultures, religions, you name it, it's there, it exists. But for some reason, this really spoke to me. It resonated in that how are we continually not allowing, but how is this becoming the norm? Infidelity, it's pervasive. And I became annoyed with it running wild, and no one's really doing anything about it. We're trying, I believe, and it will never be harnessed because humans will do what humans will do. But nonetheless, it just struck me in a very visceral way. And so I put fingers to keyboard and I thought, I'm going to write about this. And I've also been the other woman, and my ex-husband cheated on me. These are not mutually inclusive. These happen at separate instances in my life. But I have a backstory. I have experience. I know the consequences that stem from these affairs. And I have an authentic voice to speak from. So I thought I was the person, or at least a person, who could actually share and understand and be compassionate, and yet have practical wisdom in regards to this. My approach is conversational. I'm not a psychologist. I'm a true believer in therapy. I believe it's a positive influence on anyone's life if you happen to find the correct therapist for your needs. I am in therapy. I've been in therapy for many years only because I'm a proponent of growth as well. So I thought, let me get to the bottom, or at least let me get in the trenches of this subject, infidelity, and let's see what we can do from here. I so that was a start to writing the book, and it has been received very well. It's amazing how many people have stories they want to share. People continually share stories with me once they find out that I'm the author of this type of book. And I'm sure once they feel I'm someone they can trust in sharing their stories with. Again, my approach is practical. I'm not clinical. I'm not snarky. I'm not pointing a finger at anyone. I don't believe in victimhood, although I know that we can be weighted down by the issues that arise from infidelity, which can create this whole world of deep sadness and pain and anger and resentment. And all those are natural inclinations as far as this is concerned. They say that infidelity is one of the worst experiences you can have as a couple. And I'm talking about committed couples who are in a committed relationship. If you have an understanding with your mate in regards to any other form that your relationship takes, as long as the two of you have communicated effectively and consistently within the boundaries that you have chosen for your own personal relationship, okay, that's fine. You know, as long as it's legal. I mean, legal as far as you're not getting into any real trouble. However you choose to conduct your personal relationships, I understand that no one can be privy to everything. But I also know that we can be better at building healthier relationships. And my concepts that I promote are self awareness. I believe that once we know who we are, and that includes our wants, needs, and desires and deal breakers, which I don't think we discuss enough with our mates. Sometimes we're so infatuated and so in the fantasy stages of we're in love and everything's just going to work out and it's a beautiful thing. And we all, you know, let's be honest, we all hope for that fairy tale sort of relationship, which unfortunately doesn't exist for, I would say, 99% of the people on the planet. There is a rare breed where they meet and they're perfectly suited for each other and everything just seems to work and it's a beautiful thing. Yay. Yay for those people. I think that's wonderful. But I think for the majority of us, we have to be mindful of our relationships. So the first step is self-awareness, and that's who you are and what you bring to the table and how you present yourself in the world at large. And the second step is personal accountability. And that means if you are, you know, if you committed or you received a negative response from someone and that keeps happening, then perhaps the issue is within ourselves. You know, what are we projecting? And what we see reflected upon us has a great impact, or it should at least enlighten us as to how we're being perceived in the world. And granted, everyone's perception doesn't mean it's the reality of the situation. But nonetheless, if there's a pattern of negative feedback, then I believe that's something to be looked at. That's a part of self-awareness as well. Also, personal accountability is once you step on someone's toes or once you've done something that has truly hurt someone. And if we're willing to apologize and willing to recognize our part in that, in the action, and what that reaction brings in turn to us, instead of turning a blind eye and thinking, well, it can't possibly be me, it must be the other person's issue. And that could be the case, but unless we have a discussion about it or are willing to open our eyes and gaining insight from these instances, then it would be very difficult to address that. And personal accountability is a major factor in building a healthy relationship. The next is education. From self-awareness and accountability, we're hoping that, we're evolving as people, ever evolving. That's the hope. Sometimes we want to just chill and relax and plateau for a while and just process lessons learned and just live our lives, without encumbrances. But education comes from recognizing how you might be perceived again in the outside world, and how you can elevate your own growth and what that means to you personally, and how it's reflected in the way you conduct yourself in your everyday life, in your everyday relationships, because all the concepts I'm saying here can be applied to any sort of friendship, colleague, any sort of relationship you have in the world. And the last one is growth. Not the last one, but these are the ones I mainly focus on, is growth. And that comes from through the education, through the personal accountability, through self-awareness, and all that has been learned, and how you bring yourself, again, elevate, go up the evolutionary ladder, hopefully a step or two, and find new joy and happiness in the growth. It's painful. Growth is very painful. These learning curves are not easy, especially when we've been in our comfort zone for quite a long time, and it's hard to nudge ourselves out of it, have the courage to do that, and just to even step outside that little boundary that we've place for ourselves subconsciously. And but growth is a beautiful thing, because then you start seeing how it represents itself in your life, and that also entails deep communication with self and others around you. And deep communication is not the easiest thing. I'm guilty of having believed that I was the best communicator on the planet when I was married. Unfortunately, I was communicating at my ex-husband. I wasn't communicating with him. And there is a world of difference. And once I figured that out, then I was able to listen more. And listen without interrupting is even more key, because we can listen, but half the time we're listening and the sentence is halfway spoken and we're already doing our input. And that's our pain, anger, or ego getting in the way, like, but wait, you did this and you did that, and pointing the finger and blame and all this, which is a part of relationships. We're used to that, because unfortunately, this leads me to another issue that I'd like to address, is that the examples that are set in our family life and in the world at large, and through societal conditioning, culture, religion, environment, all those things that bounce back at us, that help form our knowledge of what relationships should be, are not always the healthiest for us. And we are imperfect humans, but nonetheless, we do have the ability to learn from our mistakes, to grow from our mistakes, and to reach other plateaus of joy and happiness based on what we've learned. And it's not an easy shot. You just don't grow one day and, hey, I'm happy, life is great. That's not the way it works. It's incremental, as everything is, through a learning process. And I also address boundaries. I'm very big on boundaries. And I think boundaries are important in order to secure our spirit and our soul and our heart, and not allow others to take advantage of that, or take it for granted, or step on us in any way, shape, or form. There is, compromise, and there's adjusting. And that's just in any sort of relationship you have with any person. You adjust to them if it's worth it to you, and they in turn hopefully do the same. And that's healthy relationship building, when you can talk about situations and be honest, sometimes brutally honest. But if you can couch that these conversations in a language that your mate or your colleague or a family member will be able to understand, then that's important. And you speak with neutrality, without defense or being offended, which is very hard to do when you're in the throes of anger and resentment and pain. We want to lash out, we want to hurt, we want to throw daggers. That's unfortunately sort of a natural reaction to things, but we can calm that down. We can move in a different direction with it. And that is taking deep breaths. Easier said than done, but something as simple as just shutting your mouth and saying, you know what, I I understand you're having an issue with me right now. I need to calm down. I need to step away, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it could be a day, but also let your mate know, I need this time. Please respect this. I will check in with you in 5 minutes, 12 hours, 24 hours. I will check in with you and I will tell you how I'm feeling at that point and if I'm ready to move forward with the conversation. I will not forget it. I will not bury it. I will not put it on the back burner. I will not ignore it or you, but I just need a little time to rest the brain, gather myself, and process the information. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They don't know how to do it effectively because we become incensed during the heat of an argument. And so there's action reaction. And if it becomes too hot to handle, then all hell can break loose. And words are said that can't be taken back. And in worst case scenarios, which I hate to bring up, but they do exist, but there is murder, mayhem, chaos, limbs are lost, lives are lost, children are put in the middle. I've done extensive research on this, and it's frightening what infidelity can do to a relationship. And it's based on, we need to start building ourselves up in a healthy way so we can recognize signs, red flags, understand things are challenges and things are deal breakers. And that's, again, going back to self awareness, wanting, wants, needs, and desires, putting them on the table and being respectful of your mates as well. So,
you bring so much to the table in this difficult topic, Elda. And what I love about you is this is not just based on theory. You have lived it, you've experienced it. Now, if I could take you back to the younger you, that young woman who first experienced infidelity, based on what you know now, what 3 nuggets of wisdom, what would you have wanted somebody to have said to you at that time on how you could deal with it?
well, I wasn't so young of a woman when it happened to me in my marriage. I'm going to speak specifically about my marriage. I was 43 when I got married for the first time. And my husband was 6 years younger than me. And he had been married before. I hadn't been married. And he had the experience. I hadn't. He liked being married. I thought I knew, well, yes, I thought I knew what marriage should be. And that's my mistake. It was about what my perceived great marriage was going to look like. And if you weren't going to fit into that mold, I was bound and determined to make that stick. My idea, make it stick. So I would, at this point, have said to myself, knowing what I know now, is just listen. Listen completely to what this person has to say. Their input is valid. It may not be what you think is the right answer or the course of action to take, but listen. Everyone has a valid voice. And if you still cannot come to an agreement in that moment, just, take a breath, walk away, get counseling if it goes deeper than that, which we did do, where we had to listen to somebody, right? to give cues to us about the differences and the similarities and how to bridge those gaps. So listening and listening without interruption, I think is a big one.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because when things go bad, you end up not even hearing each other anymore. It's like you're speaking two completely different languages. So, why is it important to get help, to get somebody to mediate these conversations?
Because we come into relationships with our preconceived notions. Um, and I referred to before as that examples that were set and how relationships are supposed to be conducted. We really don't have the skills. We don't have the tools to deal with real in and out daily life with a different human being who comes with their own set of issues and baggage and backstories, some more intense than others. I mean, we each have a backstory. And I think it's very unrealistic to think that we're just going to mesh. It's all going to work out. It's just a beautiful thing. We get married and la la la. We go to, la la land and everything's perfect. And it doesn't work out that way. It never works out that way. Frankly, I don't think it ever does because again, we're unique individuals and some are more evolved than others. And we just have to deal with what's in front of us, who we have chosen to love, and who that mate is, and meet them any way we can if we care enough, if there is a basis for a healthy relationship. And that is why we need to go to therapy in order to suss that out, to piece it out and then get to each individual's, maybe not the whole backstory. Maybe you don't have to go into the childhood, but each of us carry a little bit of pain and anger and resentment, and it could be repressed, oppressed. We could be depressed because of it, all these things. So I think counseling therapy is for everyone, at least once in their life, to release themselves and relieve themselves of patterns that might be holding them back that they're not even aware of.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Now, besides your book, how are you helping couples? How are you helping people navigate this space?
Well, I'm doing it informally right now. When people hear that I have written a book about this information and subject matter, it's amazing how many people will come to you. And again, there has to be a certain amount of trust that they have in me as an individual. So, for whatever reason, these people trust me just in a casual conversation and they tell me their stories. And the majority of these people who tell me these stories are men, which I find fascinating and actually enlightening. And it makes me happy that men are able to come to me with their stories more so than women. And I don't know why that is. I have plenty of female friends, but I'm just going with this flow right now. And my next step is to do relationship counseling, relationship coaching, I should say. Again, I'm not a therapist, although I did take psychology classes, college 1,000 years ago, and apparently I'm still a good therapist to some people who keep coming to me. So that's my next step, is to do relationship coaching for men.
Fantastic. Now, if time was an illusion and I could take you into your future
Hmm.
and you could sit and have a conversation with the older you, this wise woman who has led you to the age of 100, and if you could have a conversation with her based on how you're living your life now, what would you say to her?
Oh, that's a big question. um, I would say, job well done. At least you tried to do something for the common good. Um, and I really don't know how to answer that any further than that. I'm glad that you lived. I'm 65, and if I'm 100, and I think I will be 100 still on the planet. Um, just keep living that. I'm glad you kept living that, and by example showed others what is possible, and perhaps lead them or guide them in a better direction than they normally would have chosen for themselves.
Nice. So, where can people buy your book? How can people access you? Do you have a website?
I do. My book is available on Amazon. It's audio, print, um, and ebook, as well as they have a new hard copy as well. So it's available on Amazon. It's available on Audible. It's available on Smashwords. It just, if you Google The Infidelity Factor, Points to Ponder Before You Cheat, I know that's a long title. Maybe if you just Google Elda M, as in Maria Lopez, author, you will find various places where my book is and various places to find me. My website is www.eldamlopez.com. And I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on social media. I've been regrouping lately, though. I stepped back for a while because I needed to do a refresh and I needed to refresh my brain as well. So I'm still out there, though. I'm still there.
Fantastic. And is there anything I should have asked you that I left out?
Yes. And I don't bring it up very often because it's not my area of expertise. But in relation to infidelity, there are also medical conditions. Because I'm not a medical doctor, I cannot speak to those. But even the byproduct of medical conditions, such as Alzheimer's, you're with a mate for X amount of years, this mate is no longer functioning. And so how do you address those issues if you're still a vital sexual being? How do we get around that? How do we work with that? Is it infidelity if your partner is not able to comprehend what's happening, but you've taken vows? So there's this whole other landscape that I don't address personally, but it exists and it's a reality. And those things should be looked into as well. What if you're somebody's paralyzed from the neck down? And again, you're still a vital human who has needs. How is that being addressed? Are there conversations beforehand, during? These are difficult, very difficult conversations, but nonetheless, they are a part of that subject matter.
I'm glad I asked that. I always know that sometimes there's something else. So thank you for sharing that.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for everybody who's tuned in today. This has been a very interesting subject that affects all of us in life at one stage or another. I'll be back again tomorrow with yet another amazing guest. Alda, thank you for your work. Thank you for what you're doing for relationships.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing in the world.
Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.
Have a fantastic day.
You too.